Greetings! In this video, we'll talk about the further development of your robot pieces so that you can model some more sophisticated, complex shapes, delete the old shapes, and reparent in the new shapes. There's a little bit of a fork in the road at this point in the semester. Some students who are very interested in modeling will want to tune in to the upcoming lessons on creating continuous surface quad models. If modeling is not the specific area that you're going into, maybe it's animation or rigging, shading, lighting, rendering, editing, one of those other areas, you may not want to devote the time to creating a kind of intermediate level model. In that case, you can just place the pieces and parent them to the joints. If we look here, this is what I fondly refer to as a Frankenstein robot. It's just a bunch of separate pieces. And if you look in the outliner, here are all those pieces, all those separate pieces parented to the same joint. And to the viewer, they won't know the difference. If it's animated well and the scene is lit well and you have a nice little storyline and everything is working, the average viewer is not going to recognize that this is not a continuous surface quadded model. If you're going into modeling per se and you want to showcase your modeling skills, then you'll want to, as I mentioned, tune in to some of the upcoming lessons that will be optional for the class in general. But if you're interested in creating some examples in your portfolio of high quality modeling, you want to tune into those tutorials. So this is optional. This is the basic that you would produce for this first semester course. And if we look here, this is just one piece. It's just one shape. All quads, there are no tris, there are no ingons, that is more than 4 sides. It's one single shape. Everything has either been bridged or welded together. And that is just a singular shape. If we look in the UV editor, this has been laid out. The bulb on top is cut. The antenna are cut off. We can either use Paint Effects to paint directly on this, or we could open this up in Photoshop and paint on it and create our shape. If we look over here, these are just independent. And so this UV map for that shape and this UV map for that shape. And so it's all separate. You can just apply shaders. I could right click here and say assign new material. Let's say we give it a Fong and make it red. And so that's the approach that you could go to getting some color going, right? If this is our, let's say a blend here, and we come and make this blue, that would be an approach to assigning colors and shaders to the independent pieces. This will be perfectly fine for this course. Again, if you're going into modeling per se, you'll want to take the additional challenge of quadding, attaching, and welding everything together, and then also UV mapping that. Okay, and we can kind of bridge. We can start here, and then as we proceed, and as the kind of light bulbs go off in the modeling, you can turn this head into this head. By making sure that all of your edges are the shapes have the same number of edges and vertexes. A little bit of a trick to making the cube head be able to accept those welds and bridges. But those are for those of you who are very interested in modeling. Okay, let's talk about some of the tools and techniques here. I've got a cube, a cylinder, and this cylinder has 8 subdivisions. This 8 will give you something circular once it's subdivided one more time. So if we go from 8 to 16, that will be round, and then you could subdivide it again to 32 and it would be very round. So here's our sphere, and we're also using that at 8 and 8. Because we have an 8 on the sphere, 8 on the cylinder, all we would need to do is subdivide this once, create an extrusion, and then we'd have 8 on the cube as well. We'd be able to combine and then either bridge the edges or weld the vertexes in order to give us, right, a shape that is continuous and quadded. Let's talk about some of the tools that we'll be using to do that. If you look here in your modeling toolkit, here is combine. That's how we combine the shapes. Here's smooth. If you want to subdivide it just once, that's the difference between right here is when I hit the 3 key, I'm getting a smooth preview, right? So these are still, this is what they truly are, but if I were to hit smooth, that's what they would look like. And if I smooth that again, oops, I had something funny selected. Let's see. Yeah, so we could smooth that a couple of times and have that shape, or if you just hit the 3 key, it's a preview for what the smooth will look like. So we're working 8 and 8, and we'll be combining these, potentially, the smooth, which is there, extrude, which is a tool that we use often, probably the #1 used tool when you're polygonally modeling. We'll bevel these edges, and yeah, if we look up here at this guy, right, that's the one little bit that we did to this cube here was beveled it, just to give it a little bit of a round. So that's the bevel tool. I'll go through that if you are unfamiliar. When we combine, we can bridge edges, or we can weld vertexes. The multi-cut tool, we've been using it primarily as an insert edge loop with the control key selected. And with those tools, weld, multi-cut, bridge, extrude, bevel, smooth, and combine, we can create really sophisticated shapes. And this will be a little bit of warm-up for that robot arm exercise that is due this week. Okay, let's talk about first the bevel. So I can grab all the edges, right? Also, let me just mention, so I've got these shapes here. I could hide them, I could put them on a layer. Don't forget you've got isolate select here. So with my cube selected, I can just hit isolate select, and then it hides everything else in this particular view. They're still available in the other views. So if you wanted to get them off for all your views, you would go up to display, hide, unselected objects. And then just hitting the isolate select will bring them back. So very easy for as we kind of evolve our block-headed robot. We have just this little guy here, right? So we're going from just a perfect cube to something like this. This is kind of our second generation. This is sufficient for this course, for the first semester. Lots of students want to model and evolve their robot well beyond this kind of 50s style tin toy blockhead. But this is sufficient for full credit for this first semester course. But you can see here, right, there's little bevels there. It's not perfectly square. So I've got all my edges selected, edge, bounding box, and we'll hit bevel, and we'll just bring the fraction back up, and we'll give one more segment. And you can see that these are all quads all the way around. Now you can, right, I've created that Lily put the yellow robot, and those are simple shapes too for the arms and legs. All I did for that character was kind of give myself, this could be an upper arm, forearm, thigh, or shin, and just grabbed it and we beveled it and brought that back out. And there you've got a fine shape. You can taper. Remember, if we wanted to grab the vertexes up on top and maybe the top of the arms a little bit thicker, right? Or conversely, you could taper all of that in. If you wanted to insert an edge loop here, right? If I hold down the control key, I've got multi-cut, control key. Let's say we even hold down the shift key and put that right in the middle. Now, right when we scale, we're maintaining that hard edge. You could hit the 3 key and see how that tapers. Maybe you wanted to give them some bulk in that direction, or maybe bulk in that direction. So you can create, right, for these basic tin toy, you can give it a bevel, give it a little bit of a taper, manipulate those vertexes, and create some fairly interesting shapes. The other thing, right, we know that we can extrude if we want these pieces to fit together. Maybe we extrude. I'll hit the world space, we'll scale that in, extrude, and pull that up. Right, so now we've got the ability to kind of plug something in. We could duplicate this, slide that down, and to make that piece fit, maybe we just grab this, hit extrude, maybe extrude again, maybe we scale, and now we've got some pieces that fit together. Maybe we'll taper this down as a wrist. Maybe we'll taper that down a little bit. And that looks a little big, right? We can grab these vertexes. Now, when there's lots of vertexes in the same space, you probably want to come into the orthographic view. And we'll just grab those and make that fit. Maybe this way as well. Maybe we'll take the top and scale that up, make it a little more round. And so now these pieces fit together, right? We could put our joint there, center a joint right in the middle there, and down here for the wrist. I'm going to isolate select this, and oops, sorry, I missed it. There we go. Let's say we wanted to put a handle right in the middle. We don't have a center edge, but we could just snap this up to match this edge, right? If I pick it in the middle and hit the D key and the C key, right, it snaps to that. I'm going to hit undo. But if I just want it to come up, I want it to stay in the middle, but I want it to be here so that I can snap a joint there, right? We click this arrow. Now if I see middle mouse button snap here, oops, sorry, I missed the D key. D key, C, let me start again. D key, I want to limit myself to snapping on the Y. So I've clicked it, now it's yellow. And I'll hold down the C key, middle mouse button, and that snaps up there. D key to get out. We could say display, transform display, selection handles. There is a selection handle. I could come and grab my joint tool and V-snap a joint there. We would turn that handle off, display, transform display, selection handles. We could parent this, right? We pick the child first, shift select the parent, lowercase p. And if I brought back, well, let's just get these shapes. Right now this joint rotates nicely. Now in terms of penetration, right, it's getting up there to penetration. Maybe you want to take that out, right? Widen this. We could widen this a bit. And then you could take these faces. And now that kind of fits in there and has some space to move. Let me get my joint back. And so now this joint can rotate. Maybe we would thin that out, but that's the thinking, right? We can create these little joints that actually fit and work together. So that's just creating a cube, beveling the edges, and then thinking about how you might taper, thinking about how you might extrude, extruding inward or extruding outward to make these all work together. Let's look at our cylinder. We'll be using for the robot arm exercise. We are starting with cylinders. I'm going to put this on its side just by holding the J key. And let's talk about how we could get this sphere attached here. I'm going to isolate select And actually, I'm going to duplicate these just so I have a reserve. I'll come back and duplicate. Yeah, so we grabbed that edge. We went in the modeling mode to detach. Remember that when we detach an edge, we have to go back into object mode and hit separate. So we've got these two pieces here. Actually, I think in the lesson, let me do it the same as in the lesson. We grabbed this edge and we said detach, come back to object mode, hit separate. Oops, now we can reattach these. We can hit combine, and then I want to merge those vertexes. Okay, I attached it in the wrong spot. So there we go, we've got this one out here. And we deleted these faces, double click this edge, hit extrude, world space, cube, scaled it down, and now we can get this to about the same proximity, right? And we'll pull this in nice and tight. In that lesson, we talk about moving the pivot. If I can see all three colors and I were to hit the D key and then the C key middle mouse button, it'll snap up to the edge. But if I hit the D key and just hit that one arrow, then when it snaps, it limits itself to that direction. D key to get out of that, and then I could limit myself and hit it there. So that's perfectly in line with that snapping method. We can pick these two objects, hit combine, and we can double click those both edges and hit bridge, and now we've got this nice shape, kind of a ball bearing shape there. We could grab this edge, and I think in the video we do lots of beveling, so we could pull that out a little bit. So we've got a rounded edge there, so this will be harder than this one. Let's even make it more hard. We can come in and put our edge loop, multi-cut plus control key. We'll come and pick these faces, delete, double click that edge, right? I've just got the edge selected, and we'll hit extrude. We'll click world space, click the cube, scale that down, and now we can put this little kind of end cap on it. We'll scale this down. Now the pivot is out of order for this one. We'll come to modify center pivot. That centers it, and again, if we wanted to snap, I could hit the D key, click the arrow, and then C key middle mouse, that snaps it there, D key to get out, and then now I could hit with the yellow arrow, C key middle mouse button, and it's large so we could scale it down. Same number of edges, same number of vertices, which means we can combine, and we can double click each edge, and we can hit bridge. And now if we hit the 3 key, we have a real nice looking shape here. This is kind of the shape that we used for a shoulder. Came down, grabbed those two faces, extrude. Now, if you don't hit world space, they come out right at their local angle. So that's why we want to hit world space, and they just come straight down. And we can taper. You could do it incrementally. Maybe you bring it straight down. Maybe we flatten that out, and then you extrude again. And maybe this is the one that tapers, right? And so we're beginning to build out these kinds of shapes. You can come back after the fact, grab vertexes. That's done in the side view. Let's say I grab those vertexes there. Let's see what that looks like scaled in. Yeah. Now you can see how soft that gets when we preview. We could maybe hit an extra edge there, maintain that shape. So these are very basic shapes, for a tin toy robot like this guy, and let me just show you with, actually, sorry. Right, so you can begin to build out your, what I would call second generation tin toy robot. This is sufficient for the semester. You'll get full credit for the semester for creating a simple tin toy robot like that. Lots of students like to build something more sophisticated. They like to really emphasize their modeling skills. And after you've created this guy, and we've done the walk cycle, you can either use this guy for your final, or you can spend as much time as you'd like building a third, fourth generation robot to the hilt, to the specific complexity and sophistication that you are after. But for full credit for the course, we just need right, something with basic pieces like that. All right, questions in the discussion forum.